Commissioner Haddad?
Here.
Commissioner Hu is currently absent. Commissioner Jowdy?
Here.
Commissioner Kovacs?
Here.
Commissioner Renz?
Here.
Commissioner Tierney? Alternate Commissioner Palma?
Here.
Commissioner Spagnolo?
Here.
And Commissioner Venuti?
Here.
And I am Commissioner Malillo. Let's please stand for the pledge, and Commissioner Kovac, would you lead us this evening? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, our next regular meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, October 12th, 2010. We do have to table the acceptance of the minutes this evening, as they're still in the tape recorder but not quite yet finalized on the computer. So if this time I'll entertain a motion to table the acceptance of the minutes from August 24th by Commissioner Haddad, seconded by Commissioner Kovacs. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, our first public hearing of this evening is the petition of the City of Danbury by Dennis I. Elkren, Planning Director, to amend sections 2B, 4B2, 4D2, and 4G7 of the zoning regulations, add housing redevelopment option to RMF4 and RH3 zones. Commissioner Renz, if you would please read the legal notice, and I'll read the Planning Commission recommendation.
Notice is hereby given that the zoning commission of the City of Danbury will hold public hearings commencing at 7:30 p.m. on September 28, 2010, in the council chambers on the 3rd floor at City Hall, 155 Naval Ave, to consider the following matters. Petition of the City of Danbury by Dennis I. Elkren, Planning Director, to amend sections 2B, 4B2, 4D2, and 4G7 of the zoning regulations. Add housing redevelopment option to RMF4 and RH3 zones. Application for certificate of location approval for a used car dealer's license for Archie's Auto Service, 233 White Street, number J13146. This location was previously approved with stipulation on it. Parties in interest and citizens shall have an opportunity to be heard at this time. Robert C. Malillo, Chairman, published September 17, 2010, and September 24, 2010.
City of Danbury Planning Commission, dated September 16th, 2010, to Robert C. Malillo, Chairman, Danbury Zoning Commission, from Henri Finale Jr., Chairman, Danbury Planning Commission, referencing 83A referral. Petition of the City of Danbury by Dennis I. Elkren, Planning Director, to amend sections 2B, 4B2, 4D2, and 4G7 of the zoning regulations, add housing redevelopment option to RMF4 and RH3 zones. At the regular meeting held on September 15th, 2010, the City of Danbury Planning Commission voted to give the above referenced petition a positive recommendation for the following reasons. The implementation of these regulations will encourage property owners to replace or repair pre-existing structures that need updating, since they will not lose any of the nonconformities that may exist in these structures. The motion was made by Mr. Manuel, seconded by Ms. Hofstetter, and passed unanimously. Anybody here wishing to speak in favor of this petition? Mr. Elkren?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dennis Elkren, City of Danbury. Tonight we give you an amendment to our zoning regulations. Something we're rather proud of, something we've been working on for an extended period of time, because I cannot find any examples of this elsewhere where we could just pull information out of a book, model regulations. This is geared entirely for the situation that we face in Danbury. Whereas you know, in the older parts of the city, we have a number of housing units which are in a deteriorated state or in substantial disrepair, and there's a difficulty in having those replaced, difficulty that's placed on the landowner, because if he goes ahead and tears down that building, he must reconstruct it with the number of dwelling units that meet current zoning regulations. Now, why does that create a problem? What creates a problem is, let's say, for example, he would have 20 units in that building, but if he tore it down, zoning may that's why we have this before you tonight. It applies to only two zones, the RMF4 and the RH3 zoning districts. These are our two multifamily zones. They are located primarily in the older parts of the urban core of the city. We have not included RMF 6 and 10 because for the most part those zones are located outside the urban core or they're fairly new developments or relatively new developments. Examples, Timber Oaks, Avalon at exit 8, Woodlands, Arlington Woods, examples. So what does it say? Well, first we give you you all have copies? First, there's a definition that we have. We try to be as specific as possible. We know, though, that quite possibly there will be definitional questions in the future, and so which is why on the next page we said that the final determination of whether or not a building meets that definition is to be made by the planning director or his designee. It excludes two categories of housing regardless of their condition. One is housing that is less than 50 years of age. We figured that in these circumstances, what we're really talking about here is maintenance. We're not talking about old buildings that are falling apart. And two, buildings that are listed on the National Register of Historic Places. We're not offering an incentive to destroy historic structures. As I mentioned, under the existing regulations, a building, if demolished on the own volition of the owner, must comply with current zoning density limitations when he rebuilds. This would allow him to rebuild with the same number of units as he had before. That means that there is no increase in impact. What we do get, though, in exchange, is a new building, just modern, code compliant, and safe. If you have two or more lots, abutting lots under common ownership, you may combine those and redevelop both. Assuming that both have interior housing. If there's a non-conforming, if the lot area and width, building overcrowding. And I don't want to encourage that, but I do want to encourage larger units. So if I can take, now I have to require, though, parking for the residents to be on site, because this is a problem that we face in the city. We have streets that are clogged with cars, people parking in their front lawns, even though it's illegal, that sort of thing. So you still have to meet those parking requirements. Curbs and sidewalks and driveways, if they're deteriorated or they don't exist, and they're in our right of way, they have to meet the requirements of the highway department like everyone else. They have to be served by municipal sewer and water, and I think almost every case, I can't imagine a case where they wouldn't be, because again, this is the urban core of the city. And one place where we do give is on open space. We have an open space requirement of 500 square feet per unit. We're giving on that. Why? Again, I want to encourage large units. So that's the crux of it. And our hope is that it will be an incentive for developers to tear down some of these ugly buildings that we all know and love and replace them with attractive buildings.
Questions for Mr. Elton? Commissioner Hammond?
Mr. Alpern, regarding height, you said that that they have to construct at the same height.
No, they
Oh.
can't exceed the existing.
They,
If they are non-conforming, if it's higher than what's allowed, let's say it's 40 feet instead of 35, they can go up to that, but they can't go.
okay, because we changed, didn't we change some, a
No.
few years ago, didn't we change that for the zone? Okay. Oh, CCBD, okay. And then the other question is, the open space again, if you can go over that, if the open space requirement has changed within the last 50 years, what position
No, it
are you
hasn't
taking?
changed. It's, right now we require 500 square
Yeah.
feet per unit. And what I want to encourage is flexibility in design on what will be in many instances a tight development site. And I don't want to, I also want to encourage larger units. And that open space requirement, when you're trying to build at a density that exceeds the zoning regulations for control of this space, it may not be possible.
Thank you. And then finally, while you're looking to encourage larger units, we don't have any guarantee that
No, you don't.
that would happen, but is there anywhere in here that says that they cannot go any smaller than what previously existed? Could that be?
Well, it wouldn't be, I don't know why they would do that, because they cannot, because what they want to do is they don't want to maximize the number of units to what they had before.
Number of units, but not square footage of units. So, no, I meant square
Well,
footage.
then have a smaller building.
They never have a smaller building.
Have a small footprint.
True. Thank you very much. It's a good job.
Any further questions? Commissioner Cummings?
Yeah, in terms of density, where you talk about if the one lot contains two units, one is deteriorated, one is not. Would there be, let's see if I can structure this question, would there be any situation, if you see any situation where someone would rebuild the one that's deteriorated and then let the next one deteriorate so that he doesn't lose any space? So you have a nice new building next to one where he's just kind of waiting for that to become deteriorated and then say, oh, okay, now I can rebuild because I won't lose my dwelling units. You understand my question?
I do. I don't know anywhere around that. If he's gonna let a building deteriorate, he's gonna let it deteriorate. Why wouldn't he?
But if he was willing to rebuild them, both, but one was deteriorated and one was not, there's no incentive for him to rebuild both at that time, he'd let one deteriorate.
Round and around on this.
Okay?
And I can't freeze it in its current condition. There's no way I can do
Thanks.
Any further
Good.
questions?
it. Wish I could say you've gotta keep it in really tip-top shape for infinity, but I can't.
Additional questions for Mr. Elpern? Thank you, Dennis. Is there anybody else wishing to speak in favor of this petition? Anybody else wishing to speak in favor of this petition? Anybody else wishing to speak in favor of this petition? Mr. Rotella? Are you speaking in favor or in opposition? Or neutral?
Can I vote? Can I do that?
I just wanted to just,
Put him under opposition?
that's what I was,
We'll put it on.
that's why we asked.
13 living in Danbury. I got this today, and I went over it today. And before I start, let me just, for the record, inform you that I manage property in these zones. And this, these amendments as written would benefit me personally immensely. This is one of the problems that we, as property managers, have in downtown Danbury. When property begins to deteriorate, you reach a point, a profit point where you can make a certain amount of money with a 4-unit building, even if it's not conforming pre-existing. But at some point, you think it might be better to tear it down and build it. You can't, because the new regulations don't allow you to do that. So maybe get away with a 2 or even 3. It doesn't work financially, so you just keep milking along. And there's a lot in here that would probably lead people like me to make that jump into manufactured new housing, because we would still have the same amount of apartments that we could that we would have before this regulation. But make no mistake, this is a big change. One of the reasons why we modernize zoning is to stay in conformance with modern issues in the community. And this is it's almost like a get out of jail card in the sense that you can turn the clock back and kind of ignore modern zoning if you're allowed to, with non-conforming pre-existing property, to simply go back and rebuild the way that you would have been able to do had the zoning never been changed. It's a big deal. It's a big deal with the developers. I'm not sure the benefit to the community is as optimistic as the petitioner claims. I can see some problems. I'm very happy that Dennis included historic properties. It's a big deal in Denver. We have a lot of Victorians. A lot of these Victorians have been turned into apartments many years ago, 75 years ago. Within a generation after they were built, most of them were built in the 1890s, so by 1910, 1920, they were already multi-families. And they've been operating as such for almost 100 years. I would hate to see a race to the bottom in the sense that now I don't have to renovate my Victorian, I just rip it down and build a modern box. That may be more efficient inside, and maybe have a better floor plan for the tenant, but there's probably going to be a loss in that neighborhood. And if a city like Danbury has recognized the value of Main Street architecture, I think it's also recognizing at this point some of the older Victorians on Jefferson, Pleasant, Division, and places like that. I would like to see, even if buildings have not yet been recognized as architecturally or historically significant, I would like to see perhaps a intermediary that can take another look at this application. So if I come forward with a building that I think is falling apart, and I go to you guys and say, look, I want to redo this, somebody might want to say, hey, hold on a second, it may indeed be falling apart, but if you do this, we're losing what we consider to be something fairly aesthetically significant. Is there a way that you can redo what you need to do and still make the building at least look the same? I mean, you could include something like that. Now, there's also a couple of questions I have, and one of them is, other pair of glasses on. You've got this is on page, this is on 4G7, C4. You've got the number of dwelling units approved for the site may be less than the maximum otherwise permitted above when determined by the Department of Planning and Zoning to be necessary to accommodate requirements of parking setbacks and other provisions of these regulations. I assume that means that just because you have this issue doesn't necessarily mean you can go ahead and do this. I think what this is that there will be some oversight of this process through the building, through the planning department, and I would ask Dennis to speak on that in his rebuttal. 5 years, says street wall. This, I didn't understand this at all. The extent feasible, one or more residential buildings should be located adjacent close to the front lot lines in such a manner that creates a street wall extending across the entire front width of the lot, exclusive of improved side yards. Perhaps when I'm through, Dennis can speak on that, I don't exactly know what he's talking about there. How that's gonna work. But basically, my issue with, I think it's a good idea. And I think it's, in a lot of cases, necessary. But I would like to see an architectural review board, or at least somebody coming in here to make sure that people don't start snapping up cheap Victorians and tearing them down and building boxes, simply because they can. Because right now we can't. And we have to, I mean, I just did a Victorian, and it cost me $500,000 for 3 units. It's a lot of money, it's over $100,000 per unit. And it would have been a lot cheaper to tear it down and build a box. But when I got through with it, it's a beautiful house, it's gonna be beautiful for the next 75 years, and it's a prime location. Everybody sees it's a corner location. And I think that to lose something like that, simply because we've got some new regulations, and make no mistake, we're gonna lose it, because builders will take advantage of it. It's hard to sit down with your family, most of you guys are family people like me, and say to them, you know, we can do this for $250, but I'd like to do it for $5 because it's pretty. It's hard to make that argument in a family business. That, you know, look, we're all, you know, bottom line people here, and they're just gonna look at you and say, look, I know it's prettier if you do it for $5 and you can't afford it, do it for $250. It would be better if there was an intermediary on this. So if you could work that in, again, with an architectural review board, get a little bit more oversight, I would be a little bit more comfortable. But again, as written, this is going to make my life a lot easier, just so you know. You know, and I'm kind of arguing against my own self-interest, but you know, you do what you have to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Do we have any questions for? Anybody else wishing to speak in favor of this petition? Anybody else wishing to speak in favor of this petition? Anybody else wishing to speak in favor of this petition? Anybody speaking in opposition to this petition? Anyone speaking in opposition to this petition? Anybody speaking in opposition to this petition? Mr. Elkern, do you have any rebuttal comments or?
Yes, I do. First of all, don't forget that this applies only to deteriorated housing. If the housing is sound, they're not gonna get approval from us. And how do I define it? A residential building containing dwelling units, either occupied or vacant, in which the entire building has been either condemned by the city of Danbury or is substantially unfit for human habitation, or is in a state of dilapidation, deterioration, or substantial disrepair. And they're gonna have to meet every one of those. Every one of those. There was an issue, let's see. C4 reads, the number of dwelling units approved for the site may be less than the maximum otherwise permitted above when determined by the Department of Planning and Zoning to be necessary to accommodate requirements for parking setbacks and other provisions of these regulations. Let's say he doesn't meet our requirements for parking, and he's got cars strewn all over the place. And now, in order to do that, he's got to take up more area on that lot to put in parking. That may reduce the total number of units that he can realistically get in.
Unless there's municipal area.
Unless. It's not a guarantee that he's going to be able to get those 20 units. He may only get 19 or 18. He may get 20, but we're not going to sacrifice on-site parking for that, nor are we going to sacrifice setback requirements. And let's see, one final. Street wall. This is an existing requirement that we have for all the other multifamily zones. What we're trying to encourage is that buildings go across the front of the lot this way and they face the street and not put in on the sideways. That's what this does. That's what this requires. case scenario may happen. I don't know. But we can always change things. Let's take a chance. We know what we're facing now. If somebody has a better idea, other than the city coming in and condemning property, tearing it down and building public housing, you let me know. Okay? But this gives an opportunity to take, again, deteriorated housing and rebuild it into something decent. And decent housing, decent, safe housing is critical.
Any additional, Commissioner Farah?
This is Mr. Alpern, would an example of a building like what you're talking about be on the corner of like Osborne and Hospital?
Be a good example.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Okay, thank you, Mr. Allen.
And that's, by the way, since you brought that one up, I know that it's close to the hospital. Hospital desperately needs decent housing for nurses and interns. And that's the kind of gain that that the community gets from something like this.
Okay. Entertain a motion to either close the public hearing or to continue the public hearing. Commissioner Haddad?
I'd like to make a motion to close this public hearing.
Motion to close by Commissioner Haddad, seconded by Commissioner Farah. Discussion on closing the public hearing. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Commissioner Haddad.
can I attempt to make a motion to see if we could bring this petition to number 1 under old business for consideration and possible action this evening?
Okay, a motion to consider as item number 1 under old business by Commissioner Haddad, seconded by Commissioner Farah. Discussion on moving this to item number 1, old business. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Okay, we have our second public hearing for this evening. This is the application for a certificate of location approval for a used car dealer's license for Archie's Auto Service, 233 White Street, lot number J13146. This location was previously approved for the stipulation on it, and this public hearing was rescheduled from the August 24th, 2010 meeting. For the record, the legal notice for this public hearing was read into the record earlier this evening. Being a location approval, we do not have a planning commission recommendation. Quick little history, just to remind everybody. This was previously approved by the Zoning Board of Appeals when they handled these requests in the past, and they did put a stipulation on it regarding the display of autos, which the applicant will mention, prohibiting the overnight parking in front of the building. They are seeking to request an upgrade to a used car dealer's license that would not have that stipulation regarding the front of this building parking on it. Also, just for clarification purposes, in discussion with at the last meeting, it was requested that we gave some opportunity for the planning department to look into the possible reasons for the restrictions. They did research that, and they came back, and I believe there will be some information regarding that research this evening. Is that right? Correct? So we will have that presentation as well. At this time, is there anybody wishing to speak in favor of this petition?
Yes, my name is Frank Cinto. I'm pinch hitting for my law partner, Pete Scalzo, who is at another land use hearing. Good evening, everyone. The application is fairly straightforward, other than the stipulation that we're seeking to lift. One housekeeping matter before I start. When I was reviewing this with Peter in preparation for the hearing today, we noticed that the name of the applicant is incorrect, and I had with me is Joe Fieschi, who is the principal of the applicant, and I had him execute an amendment to the application, noting that the correct name of the applicant is Archie's Auto LLC, and the reason Archie's Auto Service Inc. is a company that Mr. Fieschi used at 351 Main Street, and when they moved over to this location in July of this year, it was under Archie's Auto LLC. So I would submit this amendment, which Mr. Fieschi has certified, and hopefully now we have correct information in the application. I have with me okay, yes, and the amendment.
Case 7 does say right from when I took this for the legal was on the application.
Okay,
So we will change it when we have published the decision.
all right, thank you.
July 12th application, was that?
Yeah.
It should be LLC instead of
Right.
Well, yes, and it actually should be Archie's Auto LLC.
Purchase auto, not auto service.
That's correct.
LLC.
Yeah, yes. As I was saying, I have an existing conditions site plan. I have several copies, so with your permission, I can hand these out. You have them? Does anybody need one? Okay. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
I think I looked at it downstairs, but we didn't have it. Thank you.
So if you open that up, you'll see the location is 233 White Street, and as the application notes, at present, on the bottom floor, there are two businesses, the Brake Shop and Archie's Auto. And the parking spaces, and by the way, this of course is zone C220, which provides for the sale and repair of autos, of course. The parking spaces that are in question are in the front on White Street. And I was talking to Mr. Fieschi before the hearing, and he reminded me that in the back, you'll see a number of spaces. And those spaces are also used by his business. And right now, they're operating as general auto repair, under a general auto repair license. So they have access to the spaces in the back as well. And he was seeking to lift the restriction so that when he is selling used cars, he could put 4 or 5 cars in the front. And as I looked, I went down to the site just before the hearing to take another look, and I saw there are a number of businesses that in fact do that. Regner's Auto Sales, which is on Wildman, on the corner, it's kitty corner to White Street, up here on the corner of Wildman and White Street. They had autos in the front, and if you go down White Street, so Danbury Auto Body and Colonial Auto Repair also had parking up front. Before the hearing, we had a conversation with respect to the commission's concern about the request of lifting the stipulation on whatever parking requirements might be pertinent to the general repair license. And I explained that to Mr. Fieschi, and he doesn't believe that should be a concern because of the number of spaces that are available to him in the back. There is a church. The only people who use that lot in the back is a church. The other, and it's interesting that the stipulation, and I guess we'll hear what the history is on that, but the stipulation is with respect to cars to be repaired are not to be left overnight. And Mr. Fieschi's intent is not just with cars to be repaired here, but rather the cars that, used cars that he might be selling. So I wonder if that stipulation will even come into play, but in any event, we were looking to lift it. Maybe now would be a good time to inquire as to the history. We thought it might be a sightline issue between White Street and Locust, and Peter Scalzo, we got some information with respect to the fact that in 1984, Locust was relocated to line up with Bowman, and we thought that might be an issue.
Mr. Zinder, I'm gonna give you I'm gonna ask you a question first and just give the commission a little bit of knowledge regarding our conversation that we had earlier, before we decide to let the city move forward. Because typically, you would do your presentation, we'd have an opportunity to speak, others people to speak in favor and opposition, then the city would give theirs. Your rebuttal would be limited to what would be presented from this point on. You wouldn't be able to offer any new information this evening. So if you had other information that you wanted to offer this evening, now would probably be the optimal time to do that. But let me also say that in researching this information, I was informed earlier today that the staff had noticed, or not noticed, but recognized that even if we lifted the stipulation, the zoning regulations do not, for that zone, do not permit parking, and I'm actually looking for my copy of that. It's in this different packet here. But yeah, it's regardless of whether this restriction is removed, you won't be able to store or display motor vehicles in the front yard, because that's actually in violation to the zoning regs for the commercial regulations. And then also in conversation with Mr. Harity today, our zoning enforcement officer, it was recognized that there's also a possibility with the storage of used cars in parking spaces would no longer make those parking spaces, they would actually be transient spaces, and therefore could not be counted as parking. So I'm going to request at the end of this public hearing that we continue the public hearing just to allow the zoning enforcement officer to look at the parking scenario for the entire building. Having said that, if we do continue the public hearing at the next public hearing, you would be able to introduce additional information. So with that, I'll leave the decision up to you as to whether or not you would like to hear the history of the property now or continue with your presentation.
Mr. Fieschi, would you like to say anything to the commission?
Tonight, my English is not very, very well. And I owned business before in 351 Main Street for 8 years. And I had a lot of problems with parking space. I shared the parking with the bank, now I moved to this new location, and I have a lot more parking. Obvious, I don't wanna put it full my parking for cars for sale, because I don't have space for my customers coming, and I lost business. Need a balance
questions for either Attorney Cinto or Mr. Fies? Mr. Renz?
Yeah, so you addressed actually some of the concerns, and interestingly, I went past the site on the way to the meeting this evening, and there are currently cars in front of the establishment. Maybe half a dozen, would that be correct? Yes. And they're not cars for sale, are they?
Commissioner Renz, can you just turn my?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Got notice from the TV crew back in the back of the room.
Are these cars for sale, or your customers' cars, or?
I have customers' cars and because it's very short time I moved from another location, I still, the car is my inventory is for sale. These, normally I park in the back or I go to the auctions to resell the cars.
So then, it was an exception, really, it seemed. Normally, there wouldn't be cars there until this whole issue was resolved, right? Okay, and the condition of these vehicles, there would be cars for sale, there would be cars for repair with missing fenders or, unsightly vehicles, so to speak. The other question goes to, there are other tenants in the building. And as far as parking goes, normally there's some agreement between the tenants as to the use of the parking, or has that all been resolved to everyone's satisfaction?
All people was over, everybody's on stage. I have a meeting with Scouts and the tenants is there before me, and we allow how we use the park, how we can manage it. Before we have the trouble, couple cars abandoned in the parking lot and nobody take care about that. And the British Scouts will give me the power in the letter for if I saw the car is abandoned in the parking lot, I call the tow company for cleaning up the park. And I clean up all the parking lots now, for there's a lot of trees and weeds, and I clean up it and make it very better than.
That's Peter Scott, see.
Thank you.
Additional question, Commissioner Spagnola?
Sale, what's the most cars you're gonna have at one time for sale? Any idea, like 30, 20?
How long time?
How many cars?
What's your inventory?
Yeah.
Normally have the 5, 6.
Oh, 5 or 6 is all?
Yes, I'm not a big dealer, it's smaller. If I expand it for 20, 30, I need a really big space.
Okay.
One of the things that Mr. Fieschi explained to me coming here is that with the license, have some of it or a lot of it, in fact, maybe paper transactions, you go to an auction, somebody calls and you're kind of brokering a sale, and you don't necessarily have to take physical possession of the car. Is that correct, Mr. Fieschi?
Yes, also, I sold the cars in the main street. Now the business not there anymore. And I self-finance, sometimes I once in 36 months, and the guy put the down payment. And they still with the lien holder in these cars, when my customers need, they found me in one place to make the payment. These cars I sold before.
Additional questions? I have one. This is actually in reference to the parking. When I look at the paperwork submitted with the application, I don't know if this was our paperwork or the one you supplied. But it shows your listed property location and the lot number, and then it shows that it's a different lot number, it's a different parcel of land which actually fronts Meadow Street. But yet you're showing the parking spaces existing all the way down Meadow Street. Is this a joint parcel or are those two separate parcels? This is what I'm looking at right here.
With joint parking, not the drive, has a side wall and the side is able to the people park in the back and they walk in the side of the building.
So this parcel right here, is it a joint parcel or is this is it a separate parcel?
I don't know the answer to that. We'll continue it.
Okay. Yeah, Well, I'm more concerned just because when I'm looking at this, I see two different lot numbers right here. This is where your property line is. This is another property, but yet you're showing parking here. So I just wanted to find out. So, but we can get an answer for that at the next hearing. I don't have a problem with that. And my other question would be, is there access from this back of the building to the front of the building without going through? Is there an entrance to the back here? It seems to me, as I remember, there was a wall or a fence here, you couldn't walk.
This spot has this sidewalk, with stairs in front of the here, and you have access.
So you do have a sidewalk walking to the front door.
So if somebody could pull in here, they can park here, they can use the sidewalk to get to your spot. So somebody can drive in here, park here, and then they get out of their car, go walk on the sidewalk, go over your spot. Is this a drive, did you drive through behind the building also?
No.
Okay, it ends,
Over here has a fence
okay.
for couple cars that we
Yep.
do application, I put inside the fence.
All right, so a customer to your store can pull in here, park, come in here, park, and walk into it.
Just so everybody knows what we're talking about, if you look at the plan in front of us, if you pull into the Meadow Street parking lot, they can park in any of those parking spaces, walk down the side of the building on a sidewalk and still access the front of the building. That was just the little pathway the commissioner had, I was just pointing out.
Next meeting, if you wanna send a couple pictures for
Do we have additional questions? Commissioner Kovacs?
So you have access to park in, what's this, 31, 39? You could occupy 39 spaces if you wanted to, or?
No, I don't wanna expect 39 space, because I have, first I don't have the sentiment, money for
Yeah,
my
sure.
39 cars. Okay, and also I need to share the parking with the church. This is why in the Wednesdays and the weekends, they like 10 cars I have over here, I have 7 bays inside. And I have the lifts, I took the cars, I lift the car, and the parking all the cars.
Sure. But if you had the money, you could park in every one of these spaces, or?
Yeah, the
Okay.
also allows.
Yeah, Mr. Bianchi, Mr. Kovacs, I think was asking if you needed to, you have, those spaces are available to you except for Wednesday nights and Sundays, which the church uses.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, excuse me, Mr. Sinter, just for clarification purposes, the second floor of this building, that's where the church is located, correct? Okay, yeah, so the first floor of this building are two auto repair locations, yourself and the brake shop. The second floor is the church that we're referencing. And this little white existing three-story building is a multifamily home? And with parking, do they use the parking back here as well?
Yes.
So,
As the line, that, this house over here is allowed to use 3 to 4 parking spaces.
okay. Okay, so the spaces that are marked with,
Yeah,
On
when
this-
it says 7X compact spaces, 4 cars belong to the house.
okay. Yes. 4 places. Commissioner Tierney?
There's one thing I don't quite get. Behind the building, there's a fence,
Yes.
and that's owned by Mr. Scalzo. So he could take that fence down. So he's your landlord, right? And then you could
which leading to the discussion of the back parking, but probably
Well,
needing a discussion.
redesign the parking form, that's not your concern. What your concern is how are you gonna reconcile this?
Right,
How are
which,
you gonna do that?
well, actually, I was looking to get the clarification of, so we would know the existing regarding this parking lot.
How are you gonna reconcile this?
Additional questions? Thank you. Okay. Anybody else wishing to speak in favor of this petition? Anybody else wishing to speak in favor of this petition? Anybody else wishing to speak in favor of this petition? Anybody speaking in opposition to this petition? Anybody speaking against this petition? Anybody speaking in opposition? Mr. Elker.
I will reiterate, you must take into account that section 5H2 of the zoning regulations precludes the parking of vehicles in the front yard setback. You must address that issue. In the ZBA, you can't provide a variance from that. How are you gonna do that? Which is why I think it's probably a good idea that you continue this hearing.
Were you going to address the history of the stipulation or the?
No, and I'm not even sure that it matters at this point. Why did they do it that way? I don't know. Do you have a history? We have a history. How many pages is it?
Well, I have, in 1994, they split the building into the brake shop and motor works, and the ZBA was very concerned about those two uses being the kind of repair uses that cause cars to stay there on site. And they discussed the only way that they felt they could prevent this was to put that stipulation on it. The chairman said that, they need to have a stipulation the cars are being worked on or have to be inside or parked in the back because they didn't want to see them in the front because the property is blacktop right up to the sidewalk. I have the minutes here, nothing really brilliant or wonderful about it, that's basically the gist of it. They said what'll happen in the future, and they said, well, if in the future somebody wants to come back and talk about removing the stipulation, they'll come back to us, but now you guys are the board who has the jurisdiction over this, so you have to look at this. But I mean, basically their concern was that this is a highly visible corner lot, and the blacktop on the lot went right up to the sidewalk, and they just didn't want to see cars all over the place. It didn't matter if other people on the street were doing it, they discussed that too in these minutes. They just said that they didn't want to see this on that site. And since they had the parking in the rear, they thought that they should either put them in the building or put them in the back of the building. And that's where the stipulation came from. You were on the-
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Elker? Commissioner DiCaprio, do you have?
I'd like to make a motion to continue the public hearing.
1 second, just want to give the attorney, is there any additional comments you wanted to make a rebuttal to what was presented this evening before we would consider continuing the public hearing?
No, I do not, thank you.
Okay, we'll have a motion by Mr. DiCaprio to continue the public hearing. Do we have a second? Seconded by Commissioner Spagnolo. All those in favor? Can I alternate? Mr. Spagnolo, I'm going to seat you for Commissioner Hu. Recognize you as seconding the motion to continue the public hearing. And at this point, can I have any discussion on continuing the public hearing? Okay, all those in favor of continuing the public hearing, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, this public hearing will be continued until our next meeting, which will be on October 12th. Okay. Under old business for consideration and possible action, we have item number 1 from this evening. This is a petition of the City of Danbury by Dennis I. Alpern, Planning Director, to amend sections 2B, 4B2, 4D2, and 4G7 of the zoning regulations, add housing redevelopment option to RMF4 and RH3 zones. Commissioner Haddad.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve this petition for the following reason. Just off the top of my head, implementation of these regulations will encourage property owners to replace or repair pre-existing structures that need updating, since they will not lose any of the
approved by Commissioner Haddad, seconded by Commissioner Tierney. Discussion on approving the petition this evening? Okay, roll call vote, a yes approves the petition. This just needs a simple majority with a positive from the planning commissioner. Commissioner Haddad?
Yes.
Commissioner Tierney?
Yes.
Commissioner Renz? Commissioner Kovacs?
Yes.
Commissioner Jowdy?
Yes.
Commissioner Farah?
Yes.
Commissioner DiCaprio?
Yes.
Commissioner Spagnolo?
Yes.
And I too will vote yes.
First of all, thank you all very much. A point of personal privilege, if I may.
I have a question for you as well.
When a determination is made as to whether or not it's a deteriorated unit, it's not a question of whether or not it's of historic value. We have our list. Okay? The question is it indeed a deteriorated unit? And I'm not gonna make that, don't get me wrong, I'm not making that decision on my own. I'm gonna take the unit out there with me, and we'll do a full evaluation. That's how it works.
I have one question for you. Commissioner Haddad pointed out that Commissioner Farah arrived during the middle of the public hearing of your presentation. Would he be eligible to vote on this matter, or would I need to see an alternate in his place?
He wasn't here for legal notice reason.
He came in during the middle of the, no? Okay. So at that point, I will see Commissioner Palmer for Commissioner
If
Farah.
I can interject, I came in about 3 minutes after he began. I wasn't recognized when I first came in by the chairman, but I did come in at 7:37.
I think the question arose as though that for the beginning of the public hearing, the beginning of the presentation, you weren't present for. That was the question, was the eligibility. You missed a little bit of that. So that was why Mr. Haddad raised the question.
I was only going by what Press Corporation Council told us, that the actually to vote, the person has to be here to hear the legal notice as it was read publicly. I mean,
I don't know how you do it. But I would err on the side of caution.
With that, I'm going to just ask Commissioner Palma to be seated on that petition for Commissioner Farah, and Commissioner Palma, on the motion to approve this petition, would you vote aye or nay? Mr. Palmer votes yes. It still passes 9-0. Okay, for reference only, we do have a meeting scheduled for October the 12th, 2010. We will have at least one item on that. That will be the continuance of tonight's public hearing. Any other matters? October 12th. Okay, with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Made by Commissioner Renz, seconded by Commissioner Spagnolo. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
I
Opposed? Being adjourned.